Hey everyone, it's Nicole here for Family Matters. Today's topic is going to be talking about language development in children. And I've actually already did a video for this when I first came back after COVID in a welcome baby group for the Little Cloche area. So I thought instead of reinventing the wheel, I would definitely wanted to share that information in a broader sense. So I am kind of cutting and pasting here, so it might be a little bit choppy. The video is from when I first started, so it might not be as clear once I got my camera stuff down. So check out the video and hopefully you enjoy it. I've used 4 different websites to create this video. So parents.com, asha.org, wdgpublichealth.ca, and cps.ca. So those are the 4 websites that I've used. 3 of them are Canadian, and one of them, theparents.com, is more American-based articles and tips. So I've taken pieces from each of those sections of the website to put together some content today. So if you are looking for more information, you can definitely click the links that are provided to read the full articles or to find out some more information that I may not have given you. So let's jump in. So my first question to you is, what do you do to connect with your child? So I'm curious what you do as a parent to connect to your baby. What is it? How do you sit with them? How do you stand? Do you make eye contact? Things like that. So what do you do as a parent to help make connections with your child? I'm going to give you some tips on helping to be in tune with your child's communication. So these are some tips, again, that I've taken from one of the websites that I provided. So in this one, it says that you need to be mindful of your positioning when you are communicating with your child. So you should be at your child's level. And this goes for children of any ages. So if your baby's laying on the floor, hey, if you can get down on the floor with them, or if they're sitting, get down to their level. You want to be looking them in the eyes. That eye contact is so important for babies. That's where they get the connection. It sends a lot of powerful bring connections that they're going to build, having that bonding connection. So you should be listening to what your child's saying. So babies babble. Babies make no sense. Even if they're making blah 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 sound, that's something to them. And you just hearing that and answering them back is going to be a really big thing. So listening to what they're saying and not just kind of plowing over what they're saying with what you're saying. Mouth. So take turns going back and forth. So if your child's talking gibberish to you, that's okay. Listen to what they're saying, take it in, and then answer them back. Have a pretend conversation. It can even be things like, oh wow, that sounds like a really tough day for you. And then give them a few seconds, see if they respond back. Oftentimes baby will learn that back and forth language, and that's how they pick up and learn how to communicate. And the last thing that you need to think about is that you should be facing your child if you can. Obviously, if they're in a car seat or something like that, or you're making dinner and you maybe can't, having, like I said, that direct eye contact, facing your child, is going to have more of an impact for those children. And you might notice that after a little while, your baby may not be making eye contact with you, or they'll turn their head, which just means that they've had enough and that they're still processing and they're getting a bit tired of all of the stimuli. So that's okay. Sometimes it takes 30 seconds, sometimes it takes a few minutes, but eventually babies will say, okay, I've had enough, and they'll start to get fussier, they'll start to turn their head, but it will build as they get older, and you'll see that connection get a little bit longer for sure. So I'm curious to see, are you guys doing any of that stuff already? When you talk to your baby, maybe you don't talk to your baby, maybe this is something new for you. Sorry, I'm going to cover up my zombie my zombie face mug. I shouldn't have had this mug today. Okay. So let's get into some tips to help increase your language development. So my question for you is, do you feel that you're doing anything to help increase your baby's language skills already? If so, what are they? So my question again, do you feel like you're doing anything to help increase your baby's language skills already? And what are they? Here's a hint. I bet you already are, and you don't even realize you're doing it. Okay, so I look forward to coming back maybe to see some of those comments if people want to add. Even if you're watching the video on replay, I would love if you could answer some of these questions. It would be really awesome just to kind of touch base and have some conversations, even if it's after the video is done. I'm totally okay with that. So, the very first tip that I'm going to give you is to talk. Talk, 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 talk. So, narrate your day as it evolves. When you walk in first thing in the morning, good morning, how did you sleep today? You look like you're really happy, or you're starting off with a little cranky today. Okay, let's change your diaper. Let's get some clothes on. You're going to talk about everything. You know, the more baby hears you talk, the more that they are going to pick up on those words and develop those words. The more words they hear, the bigger the connections are in their brain. So narrate everything that you're doing. They don't understand what you're doing all the time, and that's okay. And even as they get older, they still may not understand. And again, it's okay. There's just hearing those words. So when you're doing things with them or you're playing, point out colors, point out shapes. I know it seems a little early to get into shapes and colors and numbers and stuff like that, but counting as you're walking up and down stairs, or if they're holding a block that's a specific color, saying, wow, that's a really nice green block you've got. Adding those things into the vocabulary not only increases the number of words that they're hearing, it also is going to give them the words that they're going to be able to use later on, right? Count things all the time. Sometimes when my son was little, he loved to stand at the window and watch the cars go by on our road, and we would stand there because we were on a fairly busy street. We would stand there and say, oh, one truck, one orange truck, oh look, there's a blue car, and we would count them. And for him that was exciting. I don't know if he actually understood it or not, but for him it was just hearing those words, and it was doing something he was interested in. The other thing you're probably going to notice is that the first three sounds that typically a baby will come out with first is ma, da, and ba. So oftentimes, I know we talk with parents and it's kind of like the joking battle. What word are they going to say first, mama or dada? It's because the babies are able to develop those sounds easier. So talk to them. Say, mama is going to get you a bottle, or dada is giving you a bath. Things like that will help them make those sounds. And if they can watch you, again, with that face-to-face, if you're in their, not in their face, but if you're face-to-face with them and you're saying, mama, they're going to see how your mouth looks, and they're going to eventually mimic how that is, and those sounds are going to come out, okay? So that's tip one, talk. And you know you've reached this tip when the baby is not around and you're still narrating your day. Feel a little crazy sometimes, but it works. It really does. The second thing is read. Read, 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 read. And I know it might feel a little silly reading to a newborn baby or someone who's not even interested in a book. And it doesn't have to be a long book. It can literally be a couple pages, a board book with colors or shapes or dogs, animals specifically. It's never too early to start reading. It opens them up to the idea of books, and it gives them something to look at. You're still talking to them, and as they get older, you can help them point to things they can understand, and then you can start asking questions about the book. And maybe if they're interested in something in the book, it'll increase that vocabulary as well because you can talk about it. It's also a good predictor of future reading success. So the more you read stories to your children, the more they're going to be interested in continuing to read books. So it has been proven that parents who spend time reading books with their children have children who are more interested in reading books and may have a better reading scores in the future. Great resource. The dollar store usually has some really cool board books. Usually they come in like sets of like four, and they're under $2 a book. And they, because they're board books, they seem to last forever. I have four board books that are, I think, are Sesame Street, that all of my children have loved to death. They're so kind of ratty and tattered and chewed and taped and everything, but I've had them now for almost 7 years, and they're still holding strong, and all of my kids love them. They're just so simple and lovely, and I got them from the dollar store. So if you're looking for some cheap board books, you don't mind if they get a little bit dirty, or if they go in the vehicle that your kids can look at while you're driving, things like that. Dollar store is definitely a great option. So that's tip 2, read, read, read. Tip 3, music. So kids love music. And you don't have to be good at singing. You don't have to play an instrument. They just love music. They love songs. So throw on Old MacDonald. YouTube has plethoras of music as well. Sing with your child. Do the movements with your child. Don't just plug them down to listen to the music that's, you know, maybe playing on your phone or on the radio or whatever. Sing with them, interact with them. They love that movement, and they'll learn about the rhythm and the words as well. So kids songs are obviously a huge hit. So Baby Shark. If you don't know that one, you must be pretty new to parenting. I would suggest maybe Googling that one if you can. It will get stuck in your head, I promise. And Itsy Bitsy Spider, Twinkle Twinkle. They love the hand movements. They love the facial gestures. And be silly with it. Kids love it. And make a fool of yourself. No one cares. Your baby doesn't care what you look like. It might feel a little weird at first. Trust me, when I first started working for Oakcroft, I was like, I don't sing. I'm not singing for no one. Ain't gonna happen. And now I'm doing live videos of me singing my little kid heart out. Making videos. So sing, do music together. It's definitely fun, and they will start to follow along. You'll notice, like, if it's patty cake, if you're happy and you know it, kids pick up on that so quickly, and they'll do the hand gestures as soon as they can. Like, you'll see that if you repeat the same songs over and over, they will get to know them. So my question for you is, do you sing songs with your kids? What is your kid's favorite song? Is there a song that instantly, like, they light up and they want to dance to? Is there a song that, you know, kind of calms them when they're sad? I want to know what your songs are. Right now in my household, for my littlest, Slippery Fish is a big one for us. And she's gotten into Baby Shark, which I think she hears from daycare. And she's actually started trying to sing Baby Shark, and it, oh my god, my heart, man, my heart. And usually my oldest actually is a huge fan of You Are My Sunshine, and that kind of calms her and relaxes her, and she still requests that one, and she's almost 7 at bedtime. So songs definitely stick with us. So I want to know what songs you use in your house to sing with your kids, and if you don't, that's okay. There's never too late to start. Okay, tip number 4. Tell stories. Make up stories. And this is more fun, especially as they get older, you know, and they can kind of interact with you a bit more. But even when they're little, use puppets. And they don't have to be expensive puppets. They don't have to be whatever. Sometimes the dollar store will have puppets. You can make your own puppets. You can use a sock on your hand if you want to glue some googly eyes on there, or draw with a marker. You can use a paper bag. Anything that, you know, is kind of captivating and different. Tell a story. Use voices. Use silly voices. Sometimes our kids don't hear us using other voices, so when we come out with like a teeny tiny voice because we've got a little mouse, they're kind of thrown back and they're not sure what to think, and then they kind of like it, and then they want to try that with their vocals themselves, right? So as they get older, they're going to try more things. And it's just a lot of fun. So make up stories. Talk about how they can be a brave, you know, knight, or they could be an astronaut, something like that. You know, make it up, be silly, be fun, use voices, and just have fun with it. So, Tip number 5. I'm sorry, I keep coming in and out of focus, and I realize because I'm bopping around a lot. I have a hard time sitting still. So, number 5 is follow your child's lead. So, if your little one seems interested in something, keep talking about it. So, for example, a lot of times I think as parents we get really, really busy. Sorry, I'm really dry this morning. We get really, really busy and we just are wanting to get things done. So once a child starts moving around, they find everything on the floor, right? They find all of this stuff. And they'll pick it up, right, with their little fingers. So for example, say your child finds like a little piece of paper or something on the floor. Instead of just taking it out of their hands and throwing it in the garbage, you can have a full out, because they're interested in what they found. They're like really proud of what they found. And so instead of just like, okay, that's garbage, whatever, be like, oh, wow, what did you find, little Johnny? Let me see that. Oh, that's a piece of paper. We can't play with paper. Mommy is going to go put that in the garbage, okay? Because we don't want to eat paper. Yuck, yuck, you know. Things like that. So instead of just taking the paper away, I actually just gave him a whole plethora of verbal communication in something that he was interested in. And it was literally a piece of paper on the floor. Now, obviously, it can be exhausting to do this over and over and over. And do you have to do it all the time? No. I mean, when you think of it and when you can, it's definitely going to add to their vocabulary. Other things are when your baby starts to make sounds, talk back to him. So how many people have a kid who, if they're off playing and you're trying to do something, that if you're not giving them enough attention, they start like babbling or squawking or screaming, and then you look at them and they're like, oh, hi mom, I got you, thanks for looking. You know those kind of kids I'm talking about. Yeah. So if your baby is trying to get your attention, take a few minutes. It doesn't have to be a long time. Take a minute and say, hi, I hear you over there. Sounds like you're pretty busy. Look at them. Get down on their level. And then add to what they're saying. So if your child is at the point where they're starting to say some words, so something like mama or ma, say for example, because that's usually one of the first words. So if they say ma, say, oh, I'm mama. Mommy loves you. Where is baby? There's the baby. Or there's, whatever. Again, so it's just taking that one word that they know and just expanding on it. Again, giving them more vocabulary for their brain to process and making those connections. Okay. And the last tip for that one, so following your child's lead, is that sometimes when children get to be a certain age, they'll often point to things. And of course, because we're their parents, we are completely aware of, usually completely aware of what they want. They're pointing up because they want a cookie. They're pointing up because they want milk. They're, you just seem to know what they want, because over time it's just become so ingrained with us. And there are times, don't get me wrong, there are times where I have no freaking idea what my kid wants. And I don't even know if she really knows what she wants. But in those times where she's just pointing and she's not asking for what she wants, you can fill in those words for them. So if they're pointing at their cup of milk, you can say, oh, would you like your cup of milk? Here is your milk. Fill in those words for them. Don't necessarily make them say the words if they don't know how to, but you definitely want to narrate what they're pointing at. You don't want to just hand them their milk and not have a conversation about it. Again, and when it's simply like, oh, you're looking for your milk, here's your milk. It takes seconds, right? But you're giving them, again, that extra vocabulary. And hopefully eventually, when you know that they know how to say milk, they'll ask for milk. Oh, you want your milk? Here's your milk. Again, adding to the word once they know it. It'll take time, but you'll get there. And then they won't stop talking. Okay, tip number 6. So tip number 6 is never criticize your child's... I can't even talk. Oh my gosh, this is a perfect tip for this. Never criticize your child's articulation or speech patterns. So if they're saying the wrong word, don't say, oh, that's not the right word for that, or you're saying that wrong. Obviously, you're just going to correct them. So if they're saying paschetti, you're just going to be like, oh, you want some spaghetti? pronouncing it, but you're not saying, oh, you're saying spaghetti wrong. Say it like this. Or if they are developing a bit of, I don't want to say stutter, but sometimes our brains get going faster than our mouths can keep up. And oftentimes they'll repeat a word, as they get older. And you never want to say, stop stuttering, stop talking. You don't, take a breath. You're trying to tell me this, and kind of help them fill in the blanks, kind of thing. And again, you're not necessarily making them correct the word, but you're just giving them the correct word to use. Okay, there's two more that I have. So I'm going to go, the last one's going to be a bit longer because I've got to have a little bit more conversation about it. So this one is ear infections. So in young children and babies, ear infections are very common. Their ear canals are very small. They might get infected. It's a pretty common thing that happens with babies and children. If you notice your child is pulling at their ear, if it feels hot, if they start to have a fever, if they're cranky, especially if they're laying down, you might want to get them checked out by a doctor. They could have an ear infection. Now, there's some controversy over whether or not antibiotics are needed for every ear infection, so definitely go with whatever the doctor recommends, if they need antibiotics or not, because ear infections can cause permanent damage if not treated and left untreated to the point where it breaks the eardrum, etc., etc. So don't panic if your child has an ear infection and their ear is swollen or stuff like that. Don't panic if the doctor says, wait, let's just wait it out and see what happens. They might not need antibiotics. Kids are great at fighting their own things. However, if the doctor's like, oh, their eardrum has ruptured and now you have fluid leaking out their ears, they definitely need antibiotics. Follow what the doctor says, and make sure that you follow through with the antibiotics. That is a big thing in its own right, but you want to make sure that they finish their full dose so they don't become immune to the antibiotics as well. However, if you do not treat an ear infection that is severe, it could lead to hearing loss, language delays, or anything like that. So if you have any concerns, definitely take them in, get them looked at. Usually, if you're in Espanola area, I know that the Massey Clinic is usually pretty good for if you call them in, and well as the Espanola Family Health Team, and worst case scenario, there is the Emerge department as well. So, the last tip that I want to talk to you about is a little controversial, and people have pretty strong opinions about it, and I want you to know that you're the parent, and everybody's entitled to have their own opinions, and everyone is entitled to do their own thing in their own home. So we are talking about using technology, so things like computers, tablets, phones, TV, sparingly. So, in the one article I was looking at, I'm going to take some water because this is a doozy one, but so in the parent.com article that I was looking at for these tips, their recommendations came from the American Pediatric Association. So obviously we're in Canada. I'm in Canada. If you're watching, you might be in Canada. If not, then this actually is the exact same for the United States as well. But from the Canadian Pediatric Society, and I'm going to kind of read almost what exactly I have here because I don't want to kind of mislead you in any way. So, to promote child health and development in a digital world, physicians and other healthcare providers should counsel parents and caregivers of young children on the appropriate use of screen time. So, specific recommendations include the following. So, minimize screen time. Screen time for children younger than 2 years is not recommended. Avoid screens for at least 1 hour before bedtime, given the potential for melatonin suppressing effects. So, the blue light effects they've actually shown now that if you, even you, for you looking at your phone or a TV, the blue lights off of the technology suppresses our melatonin, and it actually causes us to have a harder time falling asleep, and the same goes for children. And so I'm going to get into a little bit of why they say that screen time for children under 2 is not recommended. Um, and again, I'm probably going to read some of this like word for word right off of the Canadian Pediatric Society's website, which I also posted below. So if you wanted to read a little bit more about what I'm talking about and the effects, you can definitely check out that link. I believe it's the very last link that I posted in the description. So we're going to talk about the impacts of social media on development. So early exposure to screen media changes the developing brain, but it's not known to how and how much. Okay, so published research on how and how much children younger than 5 of age actually learn from screens remains limited. Studies show that while babies do not absorb content from TV, it can catch and hold their attention. So oftentimes they'll be like, oh yeah, they love this show, they're glued to it, and it's because of the colors and the sound, but they're not actually absorbing what they're seeing and understanding what they're seeing. They might be able to imitate specific actions that they see on the screen between 6 and 14 months, but remember brief sequences by 18 months. So if they've seen stuff on TV, they might mimic it. However, it's not kept in the brain. So those connections that it's making in the brain are not very strong. Children begin to understand content by the end of their 2nd year. So by the end of 2, they're starting to understand what they're seeing on TV and being able to relate that to their life experiences that they've had thus far. There is solid evidence that infants and toddlers have difficulty transferring new learning from a 2D representation, so like a TV or a flat screen, to a 3D object, so to real life. They're unlikely to learn from TV at this age. By contrast, they learn intensely through face-to-face interaction with parents and caregivers. Early learning is easier, more enriching, and developmentally more effective when experienced live, interactively, and in real time and space with real people. So basically what that is saying is that by the end of their 2nd year, they might start to begin with understanding what they're watching on TV. However, they're saying it is definitely more enriching for babies and children under 2 to actually just have face-to-face content or conversations or interactions with people. They love faces, they love voices, and they're going to start to understand, and that their brain builds stronger connections, and they're going to remember those things for longer than if they learned something on TV. So for example of that, say you're watching YouTube videos, music videos, and they learned how to do patty cake off of a YouTube video. They're mimicking the patting or the rolling. They may not remember that as they start to get older. That may lose that. But if you, as a parent, interact and do the same things with them, it's building a different connection because there are so many more things happening in real life, 3D, around them than them just viewing it on a screen. It's making more connections in their brain, and it's really solidifying what you're showing them, okay? So that is why, the big reason why it's not recommended for children under 2. The other reason is they don't know whether or not exposure to TV under 2 has any lifelong damaging effects. That being said, every household is different. Every parent needs to do what they need to do. But please know that life interactions are worth so much more than them watching stuff on TV. Okay? So, my questions, basically that's it for me, but I do have a final question. So is there anything that I didn't talk about today that you do at home with your child to help enrich their language development that you would like to share with everybody in the comments? We would love to hear what you do at home to help enrich your child's learning. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that in the comments, even after the video is finished, really appreciate that. And again, if you have any questions, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and like I said, you can drop a comment in the Facebook group, or you can call your closest center if you have any questions or concerns about your child's language development. Thanks everybody, we'll talk to you next week.